It is a big shift.
Yeah.
My friend at this big tech company had to go back after working from home for like over 2 years.
Wow.
And I think a lot of companies are making that decision now because they're worried about teamwork,
Uh-huh.
and new ideas.
Yeah. And it makes sense because there are some good things about being back.
Definitely.
I really miss seeing my coworkers and talking to them, face to
Face
face.
to face, yeah, for sure. Remember those quick chats we used to have in the hallway or by the coffee machine?
Oh, yeah.
Those can really help you feel connected to your team. Totally. And sometimes those little chats can even lead to big breakthroughs in your work,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I had lunch with a coworker,
Yeah.
and we ended up coming up with a whole new approach to this project we're working on.
That's so great.
You just can't get that same energy from a video call.
It's true. That's what's so fascinating about this whole return to office thing. We're rediscovering the value of like in-person interaction.
Yeah.
It's not just about being in the same room. It's about those unplanned moments of connection that can spark creativity and collaboration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's be real, there are also some tough parts about going back to the office.
Oh, for sure.
Like, remember that awful morning commute?
The commute, yeah.
Ugh.
It's definitely something that a lot of people are not looking forward to.
I know. It's not just the time it takes,
Right.
but the stress of traffic and delays.
Yeah, it can really affect your whole day.
Totally. And for me, the hardest part has been getting back into the routine of office life. Like, I keep forgetting my key card,
Oh.
and I accidentally wore slippers to work the other day.
Oh, no.
It was so embarrassing.
Those little slip-ups are definitely part of the adjustment period, I think. It takes time for our brains to switch back to office mode.
It's true. But you know what? Despite the challenges,
Yeah,
I think there are some things we can do to make the transition a little smoother.
absolutely. A little planning and preparation can go a long way.
Right.
It's like packing for a trip.
Yeah.
The more organized you are, the less stressful it will be.
Exactly. Like, one thing I've started doing is packing my lunch the night before.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It saves me so much time in the morning,
Yeah,
and I'm less likely to just grab something unhealthy on the go.
that's a great tip. And something that's helped me is keeping a spare set of shoes and a charger at my desk.
Oh, that's smart.
That way, if I forget something or have a slipper incident, I'm covered.
I love that. And speaking of being prepared, we should probably talk about those company initiatives,
Right.
that are trying to make this return to office thing a little easier for everyone.
Some companies are getting creative with things like flexible work hours.
Okay.
For example, my friend's company lets people arrive anytime between 8 and 11 in the morning.
Wow.
It really helps with avoiding rush hour traffic.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It shows that some companies are really listening to their employees and trying to find solutions that work
It does.
for everyone.
And that flexibility can be a win-win for both. Employees are happier and less stressed, and then companies can benefit from a more productive workforce.
Totally. I'm curious, though, while there are definitely some benefits to being back in the office, do you think there are also some advantages to working from home that we might be losing sight of?
That's a great question, and one we'll dive into further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Working from home definitely had its perks,
Yeah,
and it's important to acknowledge those as we navigate this new landscape of work.
you're right. We've talked about some of the challenges and adjustments of returning to the office.
Yeah.
But in part 2, we'll explore those advantages of working from home and see if there's a way to keep those benefits,
Yeah.
even as we shift back to the office.
And we'll delve into this concept of a hybrid work model,
Okay.
which might just be the ideal solution for a lot of people and companies.
Awesome. So stay tuned for part 2.
Yes.
And before we go, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button if you're enjoying this deep dive.
Yes, please do.
We'll have even more insights for you in part 2.
You will. Welcome back to our deep dive. As we were talking about the return to the office, I started thinking about all the good things about working from home that we might miss.
It's true. Working from home wasn't all bad, was it? I actually found that I was more productive on some days
Yeah.
because I had fewer distractions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a study from Stanford
Really?
that found that people working from home were actually 13% more productive.
Wow.
They had fewer interruptions and were able to just focus better.
13%. That's a pretty big difference. So what is it about being at home that allows people to focus better?
Hmm.
Is it just like the lack of chatty coworkers?
It's partly that, but it's also about having more control over your environment.
Yeah.
At home, you can set up your workspace exactly the way you like it. You can control the temperature, the lighting, even the music.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I remember I used to work from my kitchen table,
Uh-huh.
but then I realized I needed a dedicated space, so I turned my guest room into a home office.
Nice.
And it made a huge difference. I felt so much more focused and organized.
Yeah, creating that separation between your work life and your home life can be really helpful.
For sure.
And for a lot of people, working from home also meant saving a lot of time and money on commuting.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when my morning commute used to take like almost an hour each way.
Wow.
That's 2 hours of my day that I got back when I started working from home.
Yeah.
I could use that time to exercise or spend time with my family
Right.
or even just sleep in a little bit.
Yeah, those are all really valuable benefits. And let's not forget about the flexibility that working from home offered.
Okay.
If you needed to run a quick errand or take care of a sick child, you could usually adjust your schedule more easily.
Flexibility is definitely a huge advantage.
Yeah,
It allows people to better manage their work-life balance
it does.
and create a schedule that really fits their needs.
But as we're talking about all these benefits of working from home, I think it's also important to remember that it wasn't a perfect solution for everyone.
Yeah, that's true. While some people thrived in a remote work environment, others really struggled with feelings of isolation
Yeah.
and loneliness.
Exactly. For some people, that lack of face-to-face interaction,
Hmm.
it really took a toll on their mental well-being.
Yeah.
And it can be harder to build those strong relationships with colleagues when you're only interacting through screens.
Yeah. And sometimes you just need that quick in-person conversation
For sure.
to clarify something
Yeah.
or brainstorm ideas. It can be so much more efficient than sending emails back and forth.
I agree. So it seems like we're faced with this dilemma. On the one hand, we have the benefits of in-person interaction and collaboration that come with being in the office.
Uh,
And on the other hand, we have the advantages of flexibility focus and reduced commuting that come with working from home.
it's like we're trying to find the perfect balance
We are.
between two very different ways of working.
And that's where this idea of a hybrid work model comes in.
Okay, so remind me again, what exactly does a hybrid work model mean?
A hybrid model is basically a combination of remote work and in-office work.
Oh, yeah?
It allows employees to split their time between working from home and being in the office, giving them the best of both worlds.
So it's not an all or nothing situation anymore. We can have the flexibility of working from home while still getting those benefits of in-person interaction.
Exactly. And it seems like this hybrid model is becoming increasingly popular. A recent survey found that over 70% of companies are planning to implement some form of hybrid work arrangement in the future.
Wow, that's a huge number. But how does this hybrid model actually work in practice? Are there different ways to do it?
There are. Some companies might have set days where everyone comes into the office,
Okay.
while others might leave it more up to individual teams or employees to decide.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach?
Not really. It's all about finding what works best for the company and its employees.
That makes sense. So if a company is thinking about implementing a hybrid model, what are some key things they should consider?
That's a great question, and one we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore different types of hybrid models, the challenges of implementation, and some tips for making it a success.
Sounds good. But before we jump into that, I'm curious to hear from our listeners. What are your thoughts on this whole hybrid work thing? Have you tried it? Do you think it could work for you? Share your experiences in the comments below.
We'd love to hear your perspectives. And be sure to stay tuned for part 3, where we'll dive deeper into the practicalities of making hybrid work models actually work.
Welcome back to our deep dive. In the last part, we were talking about how hybrid work models are becoming more and more popular.
Right.
But I'm wondering, how do companies actually make this hybrid thing work? It seems like it could be pretty tricky.
It can be. There are a lot of moving parts to consider, but I think one of the most important things is to start by figuring out what type of hybrid model makes the most sense for the company and its employees.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing?
Not at all. There are a lot of different ways to approach hybrid work. Some companies might opt for a fixed schedule where everyone comes into the office on certain days of the week. For example, they might have everyone work from the office on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then allow people to work from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It provides a bit of structure and predictability,
Right.
but I guess it might not be very flexible for people who have appointments or other commitments on those fixed office days.
That's true. And that's why some companies are choosing to implement a more flexible hybrid model where teams or individuals can decide which days they want to come into the office.
So it's more about trusting employees to manage their own time and decide when they need to be in the office versus working from home.
Exactly. And this approach can work really well for companies that have a strong culture of trust and accountability.
But I imagine there are some challenges with this flexible model too, right? Like what if everyone on a team decides to work from home on the same day?
That's definitely something to consider. And that's why communication is key in a hybrid work environment. Teams need to be really clear about their expectations and schedules to ensure that there's always coverage and that people are available when needed.
So regular check-ins and open communication are crucial for making this hybrid thing work smoothly.
Absolutely. And it's also important to make sure that everyone has the tools and resources they need to work effectively from both the office and home. This might include things like laptops, monitors, webcams, and reliable internet access.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't want people struggling with technical difficulties or feeling like they can't do their best work just because they're not in the office.
Right. And companies also need to think about how they're going to foster a sense of community and connection among employees who are working in different locations.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's easy to feel isolated and disconnected when you're not seeing your colleagues face to face as often.
It is. So companies might need to get creative with things like virtual team building activities, online social events, or even just encouraging regular video calls to check in with colleagues and maintain those personal connections.
So making hybrid work successful really requires a shift in mindset, both for companies and for employees.
It does. It's about embracing flexibility,
Yeah.
prioritizing communication, and finding ways to stay connected even when we're not physically in the same space.
And I think it's also about recognizing that there's no one right way to do hybrid work. It's all about finding what works best for each individual company and its employees.
I completely agree. What works for a tech startup with a young, digitally savvy workforce might not work for a traditional law firm with a more established culture.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of hybrid work, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is that the future of work is evolving. And this hybrid model, with its focus on flexibility and choice, is likely to play a big role in shaping that future.
That's a great point. It's not about going back to the way things were before the pandemic, but rather about creating a new way of working that meets the needs of both employees and employers.
Absolutely. It's about finding that sweet spot where people can feel both productive and fulfilled in their work, regardless of where they choose to do it.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from the challenges of returning to the office to the benefits of working from home and the potential of this hybrid model.
We have. And I hope our listeners feel a bit more informed and empowered to navigate this evolving world of work.
Me too. And if you're enjoying these deep dives, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more insightful explorations of the topics that matter most to you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep finding what works best for you in this ever-changing world of work.
Thanks for joining the conversation here at Kaz English. We hope you found it fun and informative. Don't forget to check out kazapp.uk. That's kazapp.uk for more tips, resources, and interactive practice. Keep exploring, keep chatting, and we'll catch up with you again soon.